the breath of corn, the voice of Mother Earth. Ear of corn, the origin of corn, ear of corn. The breath of the gods. Long, long ago, before the sun rose each morning to warm the deserts of the American West, and long before the rains found their way to the barren land, there was a time when humans lived without knowledge of rice, wheat, or even the golden kernels of corn. It was an age when people lived in close harmony with the gods. They didn't need houses, nor did they have fields. They wandered from place to place, surviving by the roots of trees, the animals they hunted, and the water stored in the rocks. They believed in the earth, but the earth was cold. They believed in the clouds, but the clouds often passed by, leaving nothing but dust. Humans existed, but they didn't truly live. Then one day the earth began to breathe. Not like humans, but with a sacred breath, deep, low, echoing from the core of the land. The elders of the Hopi tribes say that this was when Mwangwu, the god of sustenance, awoke from a slumber lasting thousands of moons. Mwangwu was the guardian of life. He was not as powerful as the sun god, nor as cold as the wind god, nor as mysterious as the god of darkness. But he possessed something the other gods lacked: patience. The god Mwangwu did not create storms, did not bring floods, and did not punish. He only did one thing: he sowed seeds. And on that day, when the hearts of humans began to dry up and the prayers echoed into clouds that had no water to give, Mwangwu stepped out from the spirit world and sowed a seed. No one saw that moment, but everyone felt it. A strange wind blew through the tribe. It carried no dust, it brought no heat, it brought only hope. On a moonless night, an old woman, the keeper of the tribe's fire, dreamed of a tree growing from her hands. On the tree were tiny golden kernels, shining like the stars gathered together. She awoke and found in her hand a golden seed, sparkling like the early morning sun. No one in the tribe had ever seen anything like it. The people carefully brought the seed to the shaman. He looked at it for a long while and then said, "This is not from our world. It is a gift. But to understand this gift, we must learn to trust." And so, a journey began. The Hopi tribe was not only given the seed, but also a challenge. They had to learn how to care for it. There were no instructions, no map. Only patience, cooperation, and respect for nature. Some in the tribe were skeptical. "We've lived without this. Why should we place our trust in this tiny golden seed?" But the elders, those who had dreamed of the spirits of their ancestors, said, "We may not need it, but it needs us. The seed will only sprout when humanity lives in harmony with its soul." And so, for the first time in their history, the Hopi people began to know agriculture. But it was not the farming we know today. It was a form of dedication, a prayer in every handful of earth. They didn't just plant the seed. They sang to it. They told it stories each morning. They didn't rush to harvest. They listened to the earth, waited for the rain, and learned to live in harmony with nature. Then, the first harvest arrived. The tiny corn ears, golden as the sun, sprouted. The children of the tribe called it the smile of the earth. The adults called it the gift of Mwangwu. But these ears of corn were not just food. They were a symbol, the reminder. Life does not come from strength, but from trust, care, and gratitude. From that moment, the Hopi people regarded corn as the heart of their culture. No meal was complete without it. No festival was held without it. And every kernel of corn that was planted was a whispered conversation with the earth and sky. We are grateful. We will not forget. Dear friends, the story of the origin of corn is not just a legend. It is a lesson about life, patience, and how humans and the earth can understand each other if they know how to listen. And now we move into Chapter 1, the test of the gods, where the ancient spirits will test the heart of humanity. Fire, if this story has touched something deep in your heart, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share Storylish English, where legends become life lessons and tools for learning English with inspiration. Backhand index pointing right. See you in Chapter 1. The Test of the Gods. If you found this opening captivating, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Let's embark on the next chapter together. Chapter 1. The Challenge of the Gods. Not everyone is worthy of keeping the sacred seed. After receiving the golden corn seed from the dream of the elderly firekeeper, the Hopi tribe was filled with a hope they had never known before. But the elders understood that every gift from the gods carries a challenge. The shaman gathered everyone from the tribe at the central square. In the middle of the red earth circle, he placed the corn seed on a white cloth woven from yucca fibers, a type of thread used in sacred rituals. The gods have given us the first seed, but not for us to keep. It is for us to prove we are worthy. They will watch every action, every word, every choice we make. Before his words could dissolve in the wind, 3 ancient spirits appeared. They did not walk on feet, but floated like white smoke. They did not speak with their mouths, but their voices echoed into the minds of every person. These were 3 gods who held the paths between worlds, Tokpala, Kuskurza, and Sotukning. Tokpala, the god of the first world, represented innocence and honesty. Kuskurza, the god of the second world, was a lesson in greed, chaos, and arrogance. Sotukning, the supreme messenger, oversaw the balance between good and evil, responsibility and freedom. The 3 gods looked at the Hopi people and proclaimed, "You wish to keep the seed? Then prove you are worthy of it. Go in 3 different directions of this world. Each group will face a trial. Those who overcome it will be the ones to keep the seed. And so, the Hopi tribe divided into 3 groups. Group 1, Tokpala's challenge, honesty. The first group was led to a quiet valley, where the wind whispered and the trees hummed as if they were singing. There, they found a forest filled with ripe fruit, strawberries, peaches, wild apples. They were hungry, they were tired, but in the midst of the forest was an inscription carved into the stone. Pick only when the earth has allowed. If not, the fruit will become poison. Some waited patiently. They sat down and prayed to the earth. Days passed, and the sweet fruit fell at their feet, and they survived. But others, too hungry, plucked the fruit on their own. As soon as the fruit touched their lips, it turned to ash. Tokpala appeared, his gaze calm. Honesty is knowing how to wait, knowing that not everything you see belongs to you. Only those who lived with true honesty were allowed to continue. Group 2, Kóyala's challenge, greed and choice. The second group was led to a land full of every good thing. Clean water, fish-filled ponds, fruits scattered along the path. But then, they heard a voice echo from the void. If you give up the corn seed, you will have all this forever. Some of the people, upon hearing this, immediately agreed. They abandoned their journey and embraced the abundance before them. But others turned away, whispering, "Nothing valuable comes easily. If this is a trap, I will not fall into it." Suddenly, paradise vanished. They found themselves standing in a barren land, but in their hearts, they had no regret. Kóyala appeared, a slight smile on his face. "You have chosen the hard path over the easy one, the future over the present. You may continue." Group 3, Sotuknang's challenge, responsibility. The last group was led into a pitch-black cave. Inside, there was a faint flame and the sound of a crying child coming from deep within. But there were wolves lurking in the shadows. Sotuknang's voice echoed, "Will you choose to save the child and abandon your companions behind? Or will you stay in safety and leave the soul to be forgotten?" Only one person, the youngest mother in the group, rushed into the darkness. She shielded the illusory child with her body and was wounded. But when she turned back, the child had disappeared, and a new corn seed appeared in her hand. Sotuknang whispered, "You have chosen sacrifice, understanding that life is a series of responsibilities. You are blessed." The 3 groups returned, each carrying a lesson. They gathered under the moonlight, where the firekeeper was still waiting. The shaman placed 3 new corn seeds, each representing honesty, discipline, and responsibility. At that moment, Mwangwu appeared again, not as a person, but as the first rain after many years of drought. The raindrops fell onto the corn seeds, like a blessing from the gods. The shaman said, "The trial is complete, but the true journey is just beginning. Corn is not life, It is the promise of life. To keep that promise, we must learn how to care for each seed, just as we care for our own soul. The miraculous story has only just begun. If you find the values in this story touching your heart, please like, subscribe, and share the Storylish English channel to accompany these wonderful myths and uncover profound life lessons. See you in Chapter 2, The First Planting Season and the Hunger of the Earth. Chapter 2, The First Seeding Season and the Land's Hunger. Not only sow the seed in the earth, but also sow your faith in the sky. After the Hopi tribe overcame the 3 sacred trials and were gifted the 3 sacred corn seeds, each symbolizing truth, discipline, and responsibility, they returned to their ancient land. Yet the winds on the desert still blew harsh and hot, and the sun still hung high without mercy. The earth cracked and parched, as if it had never known the color green. The villagers began to doubt. We have traveled, we have believed, we have sacrificed. But the seed is still just a seed. How can it grow in such barren land? The keeper of the fire silently listened to the murmurs. He said nothing. He stepped into the center of the square, holding a staff carved with the symbol of the sun, a sacred object used only in rain rituals. Then he struck the ground 3 times. The sound echoed, as if it came from the very heart of Mother Earth. The land is hungry. Before the seed can grow, we must nourish the land. And to make the land thrive, we must give what is most precious. The people looked at one another. They had nothing precious, no wealth, no water, no food. But then a child stepped forward. In its hands, it held a small necklace, the last gift left by its mother before the drought of the previous season. I give the land this necklace. My mother used to say, when the earth smiles, the corn will sing. The keeper of the fire knelt and buried the necklace in a crack in the earth. One by one, the people of the tribe came forward, some offering a silver comb, others a wedding gown from their ancestors, and still others a small statue of their spirit animal. Each offering was a memory, a piece of flesh and blood. After 3 days and 3 nights, the earth began to feel moist again. There was no rain, but the land grew warm, as if someone were nurturing it from below. It was then that the shaman gave the command. Now sow the seeds, but do not sow with your hands alone, sow with your hearts. The first seeding ritual. They did not sow with shovels or tools. They used only their bare hands, each finger gently caressing the earth. They did not hastily scatter the seeds. Instead, each person whispered a prayer, as if speaking to the land itself. The Hopi people believed, if you sow the corn in silence, the plant will grow silently. But if you sow with song, the plant will sing with the wind. So, from dawn till dusk, The whole tribe sang as they sowed the seeds, ancient melodies passed down from their ancestors, reminding them of their reverence for the earth, the sky, and every drop of water. The trial continues when faith is tested again. After sowing the seeds, day after day, the earth remained silent. No shoots emerged, no rain fell. The wind began to stir up dust like a swirling vortex. Some of the people began to doubt. Perhaps the gods have forgotten their promise? Perhaps the corn is just an illusion of dreamers. The keeper of the fire said nothing. He simply gazed toward the east, where the light purple mountain range lay. Every morning he would go out alone, raising his son's staff high. On the seventh day, a child ran to him. "Grandfather, the earth is shaking beneath my feet." Everyone ran to the field, and there they saw a tiny green shoot, as small as the finger of a spirit, rising from the dead earth. Then the second one, the third. The whole field seemed to awaken from a 1,000-year slumber. But then, from the west, a dark cloud approached. The rain or the trial. Lightning flashed. The wind howled. The rain came pouring down like a waterfall. Everyone thought this was a blessing. But the rain did not stop. 3 days and 3 nights of rain. The earth turned to mud. The corn sprouts began to lean over. Many cried out, "Is this another trial? The corn will die." At that moment, a young mother ran to the field, using her body to shield the sprouts. Then another person followed suit. The whole tribe knelt in the mud, forming a living barrier to protect the smallest of lives. On the third night, the rain stopped. The dawn broke. The corn sprouts that survived grew twice as fast as usual, for they had been nurtured not only by the rain, but by faith, sacrifice, and love. The keeper of the fire stepped forward and spoke. "Now the corn is alive. But the corn is not just food. It is the promise between man and the gods. If you keep this spirit, future generations will never know hunger." From that day on, the Hopi people regarded each corn seed as a soul. Before they ate, they thanked the earth, thanked the rain, thanked their ancestors, and vowed never to forget the first lesson of sowing. The story of the corn sprouts surviving the storm is just beginning. If you feel the deep meaning of this legend, please like, subscribe, and share the Storylish English channel, where stories do more than just tell, they awaken the strength within you. See you in Chapter 3, The Curse of the White Corn and the Tribe's Division. Chapter 3, The Curse of the White Corn and the Tribe's Division. Corn grows from the earth, but it can also divide the hearts of men. The corn had sprouted, the seeds had bloomed, and life had returned to the dry desert. But the Hopi people soon discovered that not all corn was the same. Among the 3 sacred seeds granted by the spirits, one grew a type of corn with pure white kernels. It was taller, sweeter, and its kernels were plump and glossy like pearls. People called it the white corn of the gods. At first, the whole tribe revered this corn as a treasure, only to be used in rituals and harvested only with permission from the fire keeper. But then greed, the most silent of enemies, began to stir. The hearts of the people began to waver. A man named Kóyala, once the best hunter in the region, had lost his weapon in a fierce storm. Unable to hunt, he turned to farming. One season, his field unexpectedly yielded an abundance of white corn. He did not present it to the village. Instead, he secretly dried it and traded it for salt, cloth, and jewels from a distant tribe. When he returned, Kóyala dressed in fine clothes, wore jewelry, and lived in the largest tent. He declared, "Everyone has the right to keep the fruits of their labor. If this white corn grew from my hands, then I have the right to it." The young people listened. Some began to question, why should the white corn only be used in rituals? If it can bring prosperity, why not make use of it? The teachings of the fire keeper were now seen as outdated. The gatherings began to dwindle. The unity, once the tribe's sacred strength, began to crack. The fire keeper's warning was forgotten. One evening, when the moonlight shimmered over the cornfields, the fire keeper invited everyone to the harvest thanks ceremony. He stood before the fire and said, "The white corn only grows when the heart of the people is pure. If greed attaches itself to it, it will no longer be a gift, but a curse." But many people left the ceremony early. They believed that he feared losing his power. Some of the younger ones even whispered, "Perhaps it is time for a new generation to rise." The fire keeper did not anger. He simply looked toward the fields and closed his eyes, as if speaking with the spirits of the past. The curse begins. That fall, the tribe held the harvest festival. The white corn was offered at the altar, but when the elders reached to break the first cob of corn, the entire field glowed and then burned with a fire as if it were being scorched by light from beneath the earth. The scent of burning spread far. But strangely, no one was hurt or harmed. However, from that night onward, those who had traded or hoarded the white corn lost their sense of taste and began to dream the same dream. They saw themselves standing in the desert, arms full of corn but unable to eat it. It turned to sand, slipping through their fingers like dust. The fire keeper declared, "The curse of the white corn has begun. No one is punished by the gods, but by their own hearts. The division is inevitable." The next morning, Kóyala and those who believed in the right to personal ownership declared they would leave the village, taking the white corn and promising to create a new Hopi, one not bound by ancient laws. The fire keeper did not stop them. He simply handed them a fire-wrought circle, an ancestral symbol, and said, "Take it with you. When you wish to return, simply lay this circle on the earth, and the land will show you the way. The division left a painful silence in the village. But from that moment on, the remaining Hopi people respected their unity even more, guarding the old spirit. The corn is a soul, not a possession. Is this the end or the beginning of a long lesson? Many years later, the Hopi still heard news of Kóyala's group, that they lived in wealth, but suffered from constant illness, that their white corn slowly lost its flavor, that the children born to them no longer dreamed of their ancestral spirits. The firekeeper, now old, spoke to the younger generation. The white corn is not evil. It is only when we place the wrong heart upon it that it becomes a danger. Remember this. It's not the land that chooses how the corn grows, but the heart of the people that decides what the corn becomes. Fire, does the story of white corn and the heart make you reflect? Help spread this story by liking, subscribing, and sharing the Storylish English channel, where legends are not just told, but brought to life in the hearts of those who listen. Backhand index pointing right. See you in Chapter 4. The Life Cycle of Black Corn, when Asceticism Becomes Strength. Chapter 4. The Cycle of Black Corn, when Asceticism Becomes Strength. Not every corn kernel shines, but it is the kernel that is forgotten that nourishes the soul. The white corn brought prosperity and division, but few noticed that among the 3 sacred seeds given by the spirits to the keeper of the fire, there was one that sprouted more slowly than the others. It was the black corn. At first, no one paid much attention to it. The black kernels were small, the stalks thin and stunted, growing in even the most barren land. When harvested, the cobs were tough, dark in color, not fragrant, not sweet, not beautiful. The Hopi people of that time called it the ascetic corn, reserved for times of famine, for the elderly who lacked the strength to hunt, and for ceremonial rain dances during dry spells. However, it was this very corn, often dismissed, that became the cornerstone during the darkest years. When the sky turned away. 3 years after Kóyala and the youth left, the sky and earth changed. The summer stretched unnaturally long. The clouds did not gather. The rain ceased to fall. The desert winds blew like embers. Streams ran dry, rivers were gone. Crops withered. The white corn and yellow corn began to fail to sprout. Barley did not grow. Crops refused to bloom. The people had to dig for roots, scrape for water hidden in rocks. The keeper of the fire, now with hair as gray as ash, knelt in the cracked earth, holding the fire circle, whispering a prayer. Mother Earth, if humankind has forgotten the sacred, let this suffering teach them to remember. The black corn rises in silence. Just when it seemed that all would perish from thirst, the elders began to mention an ancient tradition: harvest black corn at night. They said that in drought years, the black corn still thrived, not because it was strong, but because it knew how to endure. The young people did not believe it, but a small group, led by a girl named Zoe, decided to follow this tradition. Zoe was the daughter of a mother who had starved to death after giving up her food. She believed that life always finds its own path. Zoe chose a barren patch of land to the north of the village, a place that everyone else deemed dead land. She planted the black corn there, watered it only with water collected from the evening dew, shielded the plants with dry leaves during the day, and softly sang to each sprout at dawn. Life quietly grows. And a miracle happened. The black corn began to sprout, slowly, sturdily, but persistently. It wasn't tall nor beautiful, but when peeled, the kernels were thick, sticky, and purple-black like ash. The elders ate it, feeling stronger. The sick ate it, feeling revived. The hungry children, crying from hunger, would suck on the black cornmeal and fall asleep peacefully. Zoe shared the black corn with every household. Each kernel was boiled in water gathered from the rain and ground by hand on a cold stone slab. No one complained. Everyone knew it saved their lives. The keeper of the fire declared, "It is not the white corn, but the black corn that is the true gift, because the white corn arrives in glory, but the black corn comes when we have nothing left to lose." A new festival is born. To honor this, the Hopi held the Black Corn Festival, Momoingakatsi, every year during the dry season. During this festival, there were no horns, no grand dances, no loud songs. Instead, each person quietly lined up to place a cob of black corn on the ceremonial table, a symbol of patience and quiet strength. Zoe, now an old woman, was called the mother of the enduring corn. Every festival season, she would sit in the center of the circle, holding a cob of black corn, and repeat these words. There is a corn that takes 3 dry seasons to bloom. But when it blooms, it does not only feed the body, it nourishes the soul. A message from Mother Earth. The Hopi later taught their children, do not look down on the ugly seed, just as you should not look down on the quiet person. In times of ease, anyone can shine. But in times of hardship, only the true will survive. And from then on, black corn was planted first every season. Not because it was the tastiest, not because it had the highest yield, but because it was a symbol of silent hope. Fire if you are moved by the quiet yet extraordinary journey of black corn. Please like, subscribe, and share the Storylish English channel today. Open book. We will meet again in Chapter 5. The Return. The fire circle leads the way for Kóyala. A journey that is far from over. A circle that is closing. Chapter 5. The Returner. The flame circle that guided Kóyala. No one ever goes so far that they cannot return. and no soul stays lost in the sands forever. 30 years had passed since Kóyala led the young ones away from the Hopi village, carrying dreams of white corn, granite cities, and a future free from hunger. Kóyala went far, very far. They built new villages in the western lands, near a sleeping volcano. At first, the soil was rich. Water flowed year-round from nearby streams. They farmed with youthful strength and deep belief. White corn flourished like drifting clouds across the fields. They believed they had won. But Kóyala didn't realize that what they lost wasn't just their old land. It was the sacred thread binding human souls to the soul of the earth. The forgotten warning. In the second year, the rain lessened. By the third, the soil hardened. By the fifth, they had to dig 3 times deeper, and even then, the corn could not survive under the scorching sun. Kala remembered the words of the fire keeper. White corn comes with dazzle, but Mother Earth only feeds those who remember to give thanks. He began to have strange dreams. In them, a circle of fire spun across the sky, shining down on a short, black, sturdy plant. Just like the corn he once scorned. He saw Zoe in those dreams, the girl who once quietly told him, "Mother Earth doesn't need us to win. She needs us to endure." Collapse and the final drop of water. By the 10th year, Kóyala's village had only 2 more harvests left. The young began to grumble. Some families left. The elders quietly chewed clay to numb their hunger. One day, while digging a well, Kóyala saw a child collapse in the blazing noon heat. That child was his own nephew. He lifted the boy up, staring at the cracked lips and lifeless eyes. And in that moment, the fire circle from his dream returned. But this time, it didn't burn in the sky. It burned softly inside his chest. The journey back, against the wind, against pride. Kóyala decided to return. Alone. No corn. No supplies. Only one final white corn seed, an unspoken apology. The road back drained even his tears. The desert wind tore at his skin. The night brought fear deeper than darkness. But what hurt the most wasn't hunger. It was the question in his heart. Would the old ones still accept him? The firekeeper, still there. When Kóyala entered the old village, the sun had just set. Its last golden light painted the red cliffs and earth-roofed homes. He stood silently. A child saw him, then ran off shouting, "A stranger's here!" Someone brought a corn seed. The firekeeper, now just skin and bones, stepped out. In his hand was the same old fire ring, its coals still glowing as if they had never gone cold. He looked at Kóyala, not with anger nor sadness, only said, "You went very far, just to understand something close." Kala knelt down, placing the white corn seed in his hand. "I brought this to bury, like burying an old self." The firekeeper smiled. He handed Kóyala a black corn cob, dry, slender, but enduring. Take it, not to eat, but to remember. The things that last are never dazzling at first. The circle closes, to begin again. That night, the villagers gathered around the fire. Kóyala told his tale, his journey, his dreams, his downfall. No one blamed him. They only sat quietly, holding each other's hands, as if holding on to the warmth of a community that had almost vanished. At dawn, the Hopi held a planting ritual. This time, they sowed 3 kinds of corn, white, yellow, and black, all in the same row, the same field. None taller than the others. Kóyala was given the black corn field, like a turn in destiny's wheel. Legacy and hope. Years later, the villagers told this tale to their children. They didn't call Kóyala the one who left. They called him the one who returned. Because everyone gets lost at some point, but only those brave enough to face their mistakes truly understand the value of their roots. And the flame circle, symbol of the ancestor spirit, was carved onto every doorway, reminding all. We come from the earth. We return to the earth. And only love for Mother Earth makes us eternal. Fire, if you believe returning is not failure but wisdom, then please like, subscribe, and share the Storylish English channel today. Open Book, see you in the final chapter. The breath of corn, when Mother Earth speaks, where legends come to life, and the lessons are etched into every sacred seed. Chapter 6. The breath of corn, when Mother Earth speaks. A person may leave Mother Earth, but Mother Earth will never leave them. Every kernel of corn is a promise, every harvest, a mark of life and renewal. An awakening from deep within. Kóyala had returned, but not as a man who had simply lost his way. He came back as someone reborn, with a different soul, a different spirit. No longer did he carry the pride of his younger days, nor the ambition driven solely by material wealth. Only one thing remained: a profound love for the land, for corn, and for the life that surrounded him. Each morning, Kóyala walked through the cornfields, watching the white, yellow, and black ears of corn growing side by side. He came to understand that life could only thrive when all things lived in harmony, not just in the short term, but throughout the entire cycle of existence. The blending of corn. One day, as Kóyala strolled through the field, he met a child, the same one who had once run out to call the stranger when he first returned to the village. The child had grown now and held in his hands a black ear of corn. Looking up at Kóyala, he asked, "Sir, why does corn have so many colors?" Kóyala smiled, sat down beside the child, and looked out over the corn dancing under the sun. Each color tells a story, a lesson. White corn symbolizes beginnings, humble dreams. Yellow corn stands for maturity, for the many seasons that follow one another. Black corn holds memory. It represents the trials we must endure. But when they all come together, they form an eternal circle where there is no division, no separation. We, like these kernels, need one another to survive. The child listened intently, eyes brimming with newfound understanding. Kóyala felt a lightness in his heart. The circle of life, of nurturing, had been restored. The final ritual, when Mother Earth speaks. When spring arrived, the villagers held a special ceremony, a ritual of renewal and connection. It was more than just a corn planting festival. It was a sacred moment for people to reflect on their relationship with the land and the deeper values they had once forgotten. In this ritual, Kóyala was given the honor of leading. He stepped into the center of the circle, holding in his hand a pure white ear of corn, untouched, as though it had been offered by the ancestors themselves. He began, "We have forgotten Mother Earth. We've turned away from the simple, sacred things. But today, as each kernel of corn is planted, we are not just planting seeds. We are replanting ourselves, our love for each other, for the land, and for the values our ancestors left behind." The 4 eldest villagers stepped forward. Together with Kóyala, they placed kernels into the soil. No words were spoken, but every gesture carried a boundless faith in rebirth. As the cornfields began to bloom again, Kóyala knew he had chosen the right path. The dreams of wealth he once chased had faded into the past. Corn was no longer just a crop. It was a symbol of life, of harmony between humans and nature, of a symbiotic bond that could never be severed. Legacy and a gentle reminder. Years passed. Kóyala's children continued to tend the fields, not just with their labor, but with love. Generation after generation told the story of the one who returned, a man who rediscovered the truth through his mistakes. That story became more than legend. It was a living lesson, a reminder that each of us is a kernel of corn. We need the soil to grow, but we also need community, love, and sharing to become strong and resilient, not only in good times, but in hardship too. Then, the story of Kóyala and of the origin of corn has inspired generations, awakening a deep belief in life and renewal. The harmony between earth and people is not something distant or mystical. It lives in each step we take. And now that you've heard this story, remember, every kernel of corn is a promise of resilience, trust in the past, and hope for the future. If this story touched your heart, please like, subscribe, and share it today so this message of inspiration can reach even more people. Thank you for walking this journey with Storylish English. Stay with us as we continue to explore our roots and discover more magical stories in the episodes to come.